Hi, folks. Welcome to the iWrite videocast podcast for Thursday, the 11th of June. 11th of June. No, the wife's birthday's next week. We'll go with the presser today to begin with. And then I think there's an article, a blog by Peter Bell and Lesley Riddoch, which are tied to one another. We'll have a chat about that. And I've no doubt the bonking bubble, Boris's bonking bubble, will come up at some point.
Well, he had to fix that, didn't he?
Well, yeah. So we lose a generation of fertile young couples. So what? Great.
I'll save my best line.
Jimmy.
I thought the presser was awful today, mate. I thought the press, I mean, it takes quite a feat for them these days to plumb new depths, but they managed it today. Most of the questions were spurious bits of piss about whether we're going to follow Boris and let couples have a pump at each other. Let a couple of them did try and dress it up as letting grandchildren be cuddled by their grandparents and what have you. But basically it was, are you going to follow Boris? Are you going to follow Boris? Which, frankly, no. She's not going to follow Boris. She's not followed them previous to this, and why should she? But we had the disgraceful sight of Michael Blackley of the Daily Mail. Now, I ken one of the night editors for the Scottish Daily Mail. I might just have to have a wee word with that chap, because Michael Blackley today basically climbed off his normal position, which is on his knees in front of Jackson Carlaw, wiped his chin and spat out an embarrassing question about care homes and health boards, and basically accusing Nicola Sturgeon of blaming everybody for the stuff that's gone on in care homes. Mr. Blackley, you'll not be watching, but do get the message. There ain't a care home on the planet where this hasn't been an issue. In Scotland, it's been grim, it's been terrible. But the reality is, the people that you take bungs off it in the Tory party, the people that run these care homes that bung that money to the Tory party, you didn't actually have to ask the questions that they send to you. There's every chance that you, as a qualified journalist, might one day be able to think for yourself and ask a question that you've written instead of one you've been handed by a party hack. That was embarrassing today. And seriously, when I meet up with me, Mr. Thorpe, he's getting a rocket up his farter because of you, boy.
What is the Welsh government? Has anybody been keeping up with what their position is on health, on the care homes?
It's a similar, let's be honest, as Jimmy said, it's a worldwide phenomenon. They didn't know. They said, look, bear in mind, 100 years ago, the original Spanish flu, which was one of the things people had in mind when this came along, it was young people that died. So they didn't actually know for certain, certainly in January, even in February, that it was going to be so bad in the care homes.
I noticed Blair McDougall did a hatchet thread on the Scottish government. I didn't have time to do it, but what he's done is he's taken clips out of various statements made to camera by the Scottish government, and it's very obvious that they've been tightly edited, shall we put it that way, because I'm fairly sure a lot of the things that were being said were caveated after the statement was made. I mean, one of them that sticks in my mind is Jean Freeman was asked about Boris Johnson shaking hands. And she said something along the lines of, well, at the moment, there is no evidence that shaking hands is a problem. And it was clipped, right? Is a pro. Oh, it was a very obvious cut. And I've got a sneaky feeling that our words after that will have been, shaking hands isn't a problem, although we are continuing to look at the contact evidence or whatever. But politics, as usual, is definitely back. Well, and hindsight is the main weapon being used.
You had Neil Ferguson yesterday, and he was accused of hindsightery as well. But he did say earlier lockdown would have resulted in less deaths, which seems pretty obvious now looking back. But he also said, and the press have kind of let that one slide a bit, that all their modelling and their advice to the government from SAGE at the time was kind of led by the prerequisite that they assumed that there would be shielding for those in care homes. They never ever thought that the care home issue would be anything like as bad, because they expected the government to implement extreme measures with care homes in terms of isolating everybody within them at the very start. And frankly, SAGE were a bit shocked when so many people were released into care homes from hospitals without being tested.
I actually think that the fear that the right have here, the Tories have, is that once all the dust settled and the answers start to come out, that care homes were just not capable of that level of shielding, which is going to beg the question, when are we bringing them in to national health control? And they're not going to like that one bit.
No, because it's going to cost a fortune. And like I've said before, mate, they take a hell of a lot of money and funding from that industry. And that industry is going to exact its pound of flesh in some way or another. And if the Tory party has to crack down on that industry, all bets are off as to what comes out in the press. For example, how many cabinet ministers hold shares in these companies?
That there was it the Times had a piece yesterday or today that mentioned that nobody was confessing their links to care homes, pontificating in Parliament on it. It hasn't been a big issue in Parliament, as far as I can tell.
Well, look, it's worthwhile having a wee look at what Jean Freeman said about care homes, because she was obviously getting frustrated with all these attacks. And she used an expression, there's been clear and direct information to care homes. Well, she didn't call it instructions. We gave them additional measures, we supported them, we gave them PPE information we gave them. I expect, and I also expect the infectious numbers in care homes to reduce. We will be publishing, this was a threat, because the way she put it, in future we'll be publishing weekly the figures from care homes. We made our policy clear. She's angry.
Well, I mean, the point here is that unless the government took over care homes, the responsibility to actually enact the instructions were with the managers of the care homes.
Yeah, the health board had a duty, and the care home owners were providers, because of councils. The councils turned out to be really bad. Did you see those statistics yesterday? The private and the councils run care homes were the worst. The charities, what's the other category?
Not for profit.
Not for profit and charities. They were the best performers.
Well, the case on Skye was a case in point. What's Highland Health Board meant to do when they make call after call after call to that care home, and that care home tells them that they are following all the guidelines, that they are doing everything that's being asked of them, and then when they go in there's been a disaster, they have to go in and pick up the pieces, and none of the guidelines that they had presented to that care home were being followed.
Well, can I just take the line of thinking a wee bit further? It would appear from Jean Freeman, the Health Secretary's frustration, it sounds as though they expected things to have improved at care homes by now, but things haven't improved, which is why they're going to publish all these stats, this data.
No, I think they've improved over the last 2 or 3 weeks markedly. The problem is they expected that to happen 5 and 6 weeks ago.
Well, but there's no argument there, Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting once they do the lineage of the outbreaks in care homes.
Yeah,
because
that will
that'll
definitely
give you some idea of where the infection actually came from.
Mm. Aye, the genomic stuff is vitally important, to debunk some of the claims that have been made. I know with no real surprise that neither Mr. Findlay or
Ian Murray.
Mr. Murray or Jackson Carlaw have come out with apologies as yet about the Nike conference. I'm assuming that we've all just to forget the stooshy that they kicked up about that now that they've been proved wrong.
Well, the BBC did do an interesting piece on that, following the lineage of the coronavirus last night, which was quite instructive. It was useful, showing you the sort of various paths that it took. It wasn't really in depth.
Aye, but it was interesting. About 40% from Spain, quite a lot from Italy, quite a lot from France. It'd be interesting to see if they do that kind of in-depth work in America, and if they do, if they publish it, because that would kind of put Donald's gas at a peak, wouldn't it?
All right. Was that?
Oh, no.
I saw a graphic published. Was it yesterday? This is maybe the graphic associated with the report you're both talking about, and it was graphic of Scotland. Maybe 28 versions of Scotland, and they had basically identified where all the first infections had come from. They could tell what country they'd come from.
Yeah.
And most of them came from the Alps, and most of the infections came from people that had been skiing.
So what you're insinuating is that the upper middle class Easter holiday crew are responsible for this?
Yes.
Well, can we blame them anyway, even if they aren't? You can afford a bloody ski holiday in Italy or Switzerland, or that. I want to have a pop at them.
Well,
I'm going to get an earful from my sister now about this, but never mind.
My daughter, who manages a business with a lot of Italian chefs, etc., they were isolating in February. Anybody that wasn't well was sent home for 14 days before any of the official stuff started. So effectively, they were looking to what Italy was doing.
Well, apparently, the Italian and Spanish prime ministers made calls to Boris Johnson to tell him just how bad it was over there, and he ignored them. He ignored their advice. Surprise, eh? Boris doesn't like to take a telling for Europeans.
I think for me, the sort of politics of it are going to be interesting, because I think we're going to find that a lot of what really sits at the door of Westminster, which is about the furlough situation and the lockdown, etc., because the Scottish government in reality couldn't have locked down without the money for the furlough system. That's going to be poo-pooed down south, but it's going to be a big story up here. You can see it happening now. The number of people that are saying the Scottish government should have furloughed earlier, and you're screaming at the top of your lungs, or the equivalent in caps on Twitter, where were they going to get the money?
Yeah,
well, that's what. Sorry, Stuart, but there's been a few of them that have said, you had the power, and they did. They had the public health powers. But you're right, they didn't have the fiscal authority or the fiscal autonomy to do that.
Well, they couldn't even borrow the money.
You're not allowed to even go and borrow it.
Yeah, but there's another aspect to this issue as well. London started before the rest of the country, and they should have locked down London quicker.
Aye, well, when you look at just how rife it was in London at that point, I mean, I have issues now. People are talking about, they're worried about us going into phase 2 next week, England being in maybe a third phase, and loads of English people coming up here. And I've seen people constantly going on about shutting the border. And the practicalities of shutting the Scotland-England border make it almost impossible to do.
These are people that don't drive down the M74, M6. They have no idea the numbers.
They're people that have never lived in the borders either. It's like the Irish border.
I know, mate. It's like the Irish border. It's ludicrously porous. There's people who work one side, live another, and just wander across in the morning. They've no idea what they're talking about. But we're still getting over 1,000 new cases a day in England, and most of that now is in the north of England. And we've got 17 new cases the day. I think it was 15 the day before. I do have a worry that there could be a resurgence coming from England. The problem is, we've got very little opportunity to do anything about that. If it blows up in the north of England, we catch a cold and all.
Aye. Aye.
Well, think about the figures then. I saw a figure yesterday comparing London to the rest of the country. They've calculated that if there's 17% of the population of London being exposed to the virus, whereas the rest of the country, it's only 6%.
Yeah.
3 times more people in London. No wonder when you see these pictures of them all cramming onto tube trains and things, no wonder they've all had it.
I'd be surprised if there isn't another spike in London. It might not be a second wave, but I would be very surprised that if there isn't a winter spike in London.
So did you guys read that? We have an expert based here at the University of Edinburgh, Devi Sarda.
Aye.
She seems to gets quoted every day practically.
Just the blonde-haired woman?
No, it's a cute one.
She's a Eurasian-looking lady.
Aye.
She could be Iranian or something. Anyway, she has been the cool, calm person to go to on all the TV channels, and she was saying today that there's no guarantee there's any lasting immunity even if you've had it, and it's possible it's also turning into a new the polio for this generation. There are so much damage being done to people's organs. It could be permanent damage if you get this virus.
The mutations that they're finding in very small numbers, right enough, but they are finding them are horrific. I've seen something about a lassie in New York. She was 21, having to have a double lung transplant because it had basically just eaten her lungs from the inside out.
It can hit any of your organs, and they just don't know because it could end up like HIV or polio or TB, something that goes on for years and years.
This is the theory that it actually affects your blood, so it can
blood clots. Well, even that was right. That was early on. The suggestion. It's called pulmonary embolisms, and it's a risk that I'll have to live with from 2 of my conditions. So
you've got to live with not being able to go out in sunlight and everything, man. There's nothing.
I stood there in the lavvy not very long ago.
Oh, no, hold it. No, hold it. All stop on that chat. We didn't need to know what you were thinking when you were stood there in the lavvy.
Thinking about writing a list of all my health issues and thinking, does everybody have a list this long? Or am I just making it up? Or maybe this explains why I'm such a grumpy old git.
Jimmy, do you remember when you used to tell people in the pub to shut up and stop talking about their mortgages and how much money they'd made on their house? When you get to a certain age, you start talking about your ailments.
Yeah, see who's got the most.
Try to work out who's closest to their expiry date.
Aye, basically.
Something like that.
Right, lads. Let's move on. Our guest from the start of the week has written another blog piece which links directly to a piece by Lesley Riddoch in The National. And as I say, the guest was Peter A. Bell. So Peter has kind of taken Lesley's words and given them a bit of scrutiny. Lesley's piece was very complimentary of the First Minister and her leadership skills during this pandemic, but flagged up that they might not be the leadership skills necessary to lead the Yes movement to a second independence referendum. I'll leave that there. Stuart, I'll give you first bite of this.
Oh dear, I've got closing quotes. Peter has a lot of respect for Lesley, and so do I. And Lesley's article was very much divided in two. It was, oh yes, she's doing very well, great leader, and then Lesley was suggesting that that might be carried on into successfully leading us through to independence, whereas Peter, on the other hand, didn't agree. He didn't think it was a necessary. Oh no, I can give you one quote. He did say, he says, while Nicola Sturgeon has been winning the trust of former no voters, because she's been doing very well over the virus, she's been losing the trust of a significant part of the Yes movement.
I and so far as Peter's piece goes, I keep having to do this. People who criticize what's there need to come up with an alternative. For me, it's the same things as the Tories kidding on that they give a tuppenny about welfare, but not being able to tell you what you cut in order to put the money into welfare. This is the same kind of thing for me. If you're not happy with the way Nicola's leading the SNP, the Scottish Government, and by inference, the Yes campaign, come up with an alternative leader.
No, I think that's not as good a question as you normally come up with, Norrie. You conflated two things there. Yes, we all agree she's been a great leader, manager of the country, especially through this crisis. But that doesn't automatically flow into her being a great leader of a campaign to get this independence.
But that's not really the question I asked. What I said was, if you don't think she is good enough, give me an alternative. That's the whole point.
Actually, that's
we do not have.
Norrie, you're very good with that question, and anybody could say that question for almost any issue.
Right. So for me, there's a danger in starting to criticize something we don't know yet. We don't know if she's going to be.
All right. Well, let me throw it back at you, Norrie. Why should she be a good leader to take us to independence?
Because she's done everything right so far. In terms of leadership,
I could point to 2 or 3 issues where she's not. But I'd rather not.
Aye, well, if you want to point to them, charge on, mate. I would argue that she had a brilliant campaign in 2014. She took over, and other than moving us on independence, which she's failed miserably to do, but I would point to 3 general elections and
referendum.
European.
Well, look, I could point to the Brexit decision, the decision to support the idea of opposing Brexit, and the final decision to go in with Labour and Lib Dems, which proved to be a disaster because we ended up with Boris and 80 seats, an 80-seat majority. So that, by definition, that was a fail.
What do you mean going with Labour and the Lib Dems?
Wait a minute.
By definition, that was a fail. That was a bad decision.
Can you pull the SNP up as having made the wrong decision there? They were the only party, including the Tories, who had a consistent, understandable message through the whole Brexit debacle.
Okay. And then there's the situation with the Gender Recognition Act, whatever that's about. That's got highly unpopular.
It's highly unpopular, mate, but nothing's getting done about it. It's been kicked. As far as I understand, Nicola's never fully declared a position on it because she's smart enough not to.
And then we've had the problem with the prosecution of Alex Salmond. That hasn't turned out well. That was a bad decision as well.
That wasn't her decision. You keep saying that, Stuart. What could she have done? Would you want her to ban the Crown Prosecution Service for bringing charges against Alex Salmond? Do you want to live in a country with a dictator?
We'll have to wait and see what the inquiry brings out, whether your statement is true.
We do not have to wait and see. It was not Nicola Sturgeon's decision.
Well, before they came to a criminal prosecution, they had an inquiry.
Which again was not Nicola Sturgeon's decision.
How do you know?
It was Evans, head of the civil service. If Nicola Sturgeon had turned round to Evans and said, "Oh, you want to have a pop at my mentor, do you? Well, you canny. There's your jotters. Bugger off."
Time will tell, guys. Time will tell.
No, time won't tell anything. You either think that Nicola Sturgeon is a dictator, as Jimmy's just said, and has dictated the policy of Evans with the civil service.
I'm not taking that, Norrie. I'm not accepting that as an accusation you're not entitled to make. She made a bad managerial decision.
When?
3 times.
Well,
it was a bad plan to allow Ian Blackford to go down and the coterie of SNP MPs in Westminster to follow through all the way through those hung parliaments as they did. It worked out bad for us in Scotland.
Right, okay, this is a totally new subject.
It's worked out. It was a bad decision. Whatever decision she made, whether it was talking to Alex Salmond and not telling the Parliament, not telling the civil service, we don't know the details yet. So you can't make that argument.
So how do you know it was a bad decision?
You can't. Yes, because she's the top of the tree eventually.
We don't know the details yet, quote unquote.
Oh, so
how do you know it was a bad decision?
Well, whose decision was it?
What? You don't know. We don't know the details yet, but it was a bad decision. That's what you just said.
Somebody made a bad decision, and she carried the can.
Okay. Alex, who's a member of the SNP, they have a phone call. She says to Alex, make yourself scarce, mate, because you're in trouble. She shouldn't have done that.
You're making things up now.
Exactly, and so are you.
Oh, no, I'm not making things up. We don't know.
Well, look, you've decided it was our decision.
Right. Let me.
How many times do you want to say we don't know and then cast aspersions?
All right.
That's what you're doing every single time.
Right, let me make this clear to you guys. There are three people at the top of the Scottish government.
Oh, here we go again.
There's the First Minister, there's the boss of the SNP, the chief executive of the party, and there's the head of the civil service. Those are the three people.
Hold it. The boss of the SNP, the boss of the Scottish National Party, has no role in government and does not sit in any government committees. You're about to cast the aspersion that her and her husband and Lesley Evans cooked up this whole thing, and it's a crock of shit.
No, you're going from bad management, which is my accusation, into a conspiracy. I'm not saying it was a conspiracy at all.
Right. Okay, Stuart. Let's just take one at a time. Nicola Sturgeon has no power over the Crown Office or the civil service, apart from an ability to hire and fire. She can't make decisions about inquiries in the civil service. It's against the rules, right? So
that doesn't mean to say she can't suggest things to people, that things don't happen because she doesn't like.
Again, well, you're not hearing what you want to hear. So again, you're casting aspersions. You're saying that she's whispered in somebody's ear. Go and investigate Alex because he's been a pain in my arse.
She could have found out. Look, she could have found out too late to stop things.
In which case, it didn't matter what her decision was. If she found out too late to stop things.
Well, look, there's a big difference between the inquiry into sexual harassment within the civil service and the follow-up, which was police prosecution, a police investigation, and then a Crown Office prosecution. There are three different things going on there.
None of which was in her power to make decisions on.
We'll see. We don't know.
What do you mean we'll see?
There's an inquiry coming, don't forget.
Oh, right. Okay, Stuart. So all of a sudden, she's got more power than Boris Johnson. Because Boris Johnson can't stop the courts making decisions on political decisions he's made.
You're making it. You really make assumptions, the pair of you, about the genuine independence of the courts that my experience tells me it isn't true.
Why? Because you
can anecdotal experience.
True.
Well, let's throw in the Lockerbie. Let's throw in the Lockerbie plane crash and everything that followed that.
Where the fuck are you going?
Do you know that came up only 2 days ago?
Anywhere he can go to come up with a conspiracy theory that has no basis.
It came up only the other day again.
What about it?
The senior reporter talking to the BBC about the wrapping up of the murder of the Swedish Prime Minister, Olof Palme. It was neatly wrapped up because they accused somebody that was deed of doing it. Whereas it was always suspected it was the security services of the South African state at the time, the apartheid state. But they couldn't pin it down. Apparently,
what's that got to do with Lockerbie?
This guy, apparently, the scandal around the not carrying on with a prosecution of anybody important on the death of a very important prime minister, the assassination of a prime minister, is as big as the Lockerbie scandal. This is what he was saying. It's seen outside this country, the conviction of McGrahy, or whatever his name was, is seen as a you know, total conspiracy.
Who confessed?
It was a conspiracy of Scottish, the top of Scottish justice.
Who's Libyan?
Ask Kenny McCaskill now. Ask Kenny McCaskill now.
Kenny McCaskill's an asshole, mate.
Well, he used to be justice ceremony.
And was criticised for that as well. Can he have it always? So
yeah, well, he'd had a drink in him, that's all.
Your desire for a conspiracy involving the Scottish government.
I am not suggesting, I'm not saying there's a conspiracy. I'm saying it was mismanagement.
Oh, right. So we've changed our tune.
No, that's what I've been saying.
Management of the SNP.
Yeah, bad for the SNP, bad for the independence cause.
Wait a minute. So the management of the SNP has what? Has turned them into an incredibly unsuccessful political party, has lost them thousands of votes.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said at all.
Well, I'm sorry. Peter Murrell, manages the SNP, the party.
Yes.
They're in power. They have been in power how long? They've won how many general elections in Scotland?
Mm-hmm. But that's not the argument. The argument is, yes, they're doing very well, but they're not leading us to we're not any closer to independence.
So, right, you're losing the argument, so you've changed the subject.
Well, if you insist.
Well, we weren't talking about independence.
Yes, we are. We're talking about whether Nicola Sturgeon is the best leader to lead the country to independence.
Okay, I'll give you that. Circumvatory route, but we'll give you it. So, my argument is, until you've got somebody to replace her, shut your mouth.
I don't think there's many out there at the minute. When you look at what's sitting in Holyrood and what's sitting in Westminster, there's some fabulous politicians, but I didn't see anybody that's going to grab the yes movement or grab the party by the scruff of the neck and re-energise it.
To pinch Peter, a quote from Peter, there's nobody who would look comfortable in tackety boots. I think there is somebody. I think Jane Freeman.
No, mate, she's too old.
A war general. I wouldn't say lead the party.
Okay, but I got to leave you with one statistic. Apparently, a third of the SNP membership believe there is a conspiracy. There was a conspiracy.
Oh, wait a minute.
To get rid of Alex Salmond. I don't agree with that, but that's what's going on.
Well, why are you bringing it in then? Of course you agree with it, or you wouldn't be chucking it in. Didn't you watch the interview on Newsnight last night? She bloody shook her head and laughed in derision at even a suggestion of a conspiracy. She laughed at me. Are you saying that she's making all that up and that she's barefaced lying?
Well, let's put it this way. How did it get to this? How did it get to this mess?
I don't know. Maybe it's because the Unionists will do anything to undermine the SNP, Stuart.
Well,
the SNP are not the enemy.
Yeah, but that makes it a conspiracy from Whitehall, doesn't it? Or GCHQ or whatever, MI5.
Okay.
Sure. Alex Salmond behaved inappropriately and has confessed to behaving inappropriately. That's how it got to this.
True.
That's how it got to this, because there are people inside the Scottish government, and by Scottish government, I mean the Scottish Civil Service, who wanted to bring Alex down a peg.
Well, that's possibly a very interesting way you put it there, Jimmy. That's possibly all that they wanted to do. Bring Alex down a peg, and look, it got out of control.
I think they thought that the internal investigation would be able to slap Alex, would be able to besmirch any reputation that they had. And frankly, a couple of the people that are involved, they were just downright jealous. They wanted a job, and Alex prevented them from getting it. I think they thought the internal investigation would do that for them.
That makes sense.
And then somebody's...
See, that's not Jimmy, that's not a conspiracy, but it is.
No, that's just
bad management.
It's just a bunch of people who are trying to exact some revenge on somebody.
I have no idea where you get bad management out of that, Stuart. The discipline in the SNP has been absolutely fantastic. apart from presuming what Alex is going to come out with is going to point fingers at senior members in the party, apart from that one instance?
I'm not sure he will, mate. I think looking at how ill his wife might be is stuff that I've heard. I'm not sure that he is writing a book. I think that all the stuff that the press are telling you about him writing an explosive book that's a bomb ready to explode under the SNP, I reckon it's wishful thinking, mate.
But that, I mean, guess what the next argument will be if the book doesn't appear?
Who silenced him?
Well, it'll be who silenced him, or he didn't have the argument he claimed he had. I mean, if there's any conspiracy here, it's the unionist press conspiring against Alex Salmond, blowing everything out of proportion, refusing to accept the not guilty verdict. It's, you know, and that's your press, folks.
Well, I think there's actually
You're looking in the wrong place, Stuart.
I think there's a problem there. But when you say refusing to accept the not guilty verdict, I think there's a genuine problem with the fact that the Salmond squad still exists. And clearly, there's a very, very senior officer in Police Scotland that's running the Salmond squad, because he's got the power to still have them together when the investigation's over. So maybe if there's a conspiracy, that's where to look. Why on earth the 20 plus senior detectives still working on something where the case is over and done? They've had their day in court and they lost. Just think of the money that 20 senior detectives costs to run as a squad. Where's it going? What are they aiming at? What are the aims of the senior officer? And how on earth does he have the level of influence that goes all the way into the Crown Office, that gets a couple of citizen journalists arrested, gets them taken to court for contempt?
Well, I do think if Craig Murray is found guilty, I'll be quite happy to take to the streets. And the question will be, why him and nobody else?
I think that would be the makings of a massive scandal if he was found guilty, mate. Given contempt is something very, very rarely tried in Scotland. It's a very difficult thing to pin to anybody, isn't it? It all smells, mate, to me, as I say, the fact that, and clearly as well, there's a contact, because it was the Times on both occasions, wasn't it, that had the bubble that these guys were getting arrested, because it was a senior journalist for the Times that phoned both of them just after they'd been visited by the police. So which senior Scottish police officer is that close to somebody at the Times that they're willing to bubble that kind of information as well?
Well, anybody pick up anything else today?
I can't remember now. Not me. Not me, I don't think. Wait a minute. I must have something. Yeah. I'll just leave you with a quote for the final quote from Peter Bell about Riddoch, about Sturgeon. Is she prepared to reject the Section 30 process? It's all that he summed up with, which is, it's not surprising, is it?
Well, I would hope so. I didn't see that asking for a Section 30 has any future, because we've done it a couple of times now. And as I said when Peter was on, if such an ineffectual and weak Prime Minister as Theresa May can bat that away with "now is not the time," it's done, it's dusted. Don't ask again, because all you're going to do is humiliate yourself and make yourself look weak when Boris says ram it.
I'll tell you, the Tim Montgomery used to be Conservative Home.
I brought that up yesterday, if you remember.
Wrote a hatchet piece on
Boris
in the Times today. That's an important move, because Tim Montgomery was a big supporter of Boris.
Well, it's an interest. I read it, and it's an interesting insight into just how it's stuff that we've talked about before about how little talent there is on the Tory front bench, how little disagreement there is in the cabinet room, because, as he mentions, Thatcher in her first term, she surrounded herself with people that disagreed with her because it sharpened her intellect, sharpened her policies.
Not sure she had much choice.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. In the first, in the first cabinet, she didn't have a lot of choice.
You've got to remember that Thatcher, she wasn't doing very well until she managed to get a wee war. It was the Falklands War. She wasn't going anywhere without the Falklands War.
I bet you should have still beat Michael Foot in an election, though, mate.
Oh, I no doubt about that. I do think that the move, I mean, the cartoon behind me there sums it up. He's had a really bad pandemic. It's shown up all sorts of weaknesses. And there seems to be a fluttering amongst the Tories that he needs some gravitas around that cabinet table.
No, but you also said something quite interesting, if you recall, something personal.
Aye, about the missus.
His wife. Was it a wife? Not just a baby.
Yeah, it was the missus, aye.
That she was his rock.
And quite possibly she was the brains of the operation.
Aye, and without her, he's gone to pot.
And we've all known politicians where the wife was the brains and the power behind the throne, eh? Leith had an MP that way years ago.
Well, if I can kind of get to my point, there's so many things piling up on Boris Johnson now that the request for the Section 30 might be perceived in different ways at Holyrood and Westminster. It might be perceived at Westminster, the refusal of it, as showing strength, blah, blah, blah. But it might be perceived at Holyrood as the final nail in Johnson's coffin. So there's kind of a Westminster element to asking for the Section 30 as well. It might, in fact, be easier for Johnson to simply say, yeah, have your independence referendum.
I can't see any British Prime Minister ever allowing a referendum again, mate, because the only reason Cameron allowed it is because we were sitting at 23% and he never ever thought we could get close to 40, never mind close to 50.
No, I agree with you there, Jimmy. That's the way I see it.
Remember that come Brexit, they're going to have to be pumping an awful lot of money north of the border. They reckon Scotland's going to be one of the worst hit areas of the UK. They're going to have to pump an awful lot of money up here.
Maybe that's why they're cheerfully selling off more offshore wind power licenses at the time.
That's another point. The asset stripping that's going on at the moment under cover of everything is amazing. It's unbelievable. And on that happy note, unless somebody's got a final to add.
I have something to finish with because I believe I'm not the only one getting it. It's popping up on my Facebook today and I can't stop it. It's a paid for ad and it always comes up at number one. It's not like normal advertising. Stewart, health researchers predict COVID-19 hotspots. Take a quick survey. Other people have been talking about this. They can't get rid of it out of your timeline.
Have you done the survey?
I don't click on anything that I don't know where it's coming from.
No,
I'm old enough to know.
What I'm saying is, I don't know, are you suggesting it's a data gathering exercise or?
Yeah, yes, there's a lot of suspicion about it around. It comes right at the top, whether you like it, it pings in. It doesn't come in like an ordinary ad. No, it's coming from Facebook headquarters or the intelligence services.
I don't trust Facebook. It's the only conspiracy that I actually sign up to.
Dominic.
It's actually run by Donald Trump and a monkey.
Oh, I thought it was Dominic Cummings.
Oh, he's got a finger in the pie as well. Of course.
Hold it. If it's Donald Trump and the monkey, who's in charge?
The monkey.
Good.
Only because the monkey can play a musical instrument and Donald Trump can't.
Aye, the only thing he's been able to work over the years is a fiddle, and he's not very good at that.
It keeps getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call it a day at that then, folks. Thanks, Jimmy Hutton. Thanks, Stuart Lockhead. I'm Norrie Stewart.
Cheerio.
And we'll see you all tomorrow for Hat Friday. Any
Splendid.
listeners, you have our permission to wear a hat if you feel the need. Have you been speaking to the union again, Jimmy, or will you have a hat on tomorrow?
I have something prepared, yes.
All right, okay.
Okay.
One of our listeners has requested top hats, which we can just about manage, I think.
How on earth do you get a top hat for he's that shape?
Hey, mate, look at the state of Tories. You seriously think they can't make a hat to fit that? I see Prince Philip was wondering about his top hat for his birthday. Congratulations, Your Royal Highness.
I wonder how they managed to reanimate him and pretend he's still alive. Eh? Good effort by the Spitting Image team making a Prince Philip that looks more like Prince Philip than he does.
Well.
Okay. We'll see you all tomorrow, folks. Thanks for listening.
Cheers.